And it's yours, Melanie.
All right. Thank you, Rick. My name is Melanie Bellinger. I am with Wounded Warrior Project and president of BOMA Jacksonville. I am presenting, not presenting, I'm sorry. I am going to help present the speaker today, but it's on water mitigation awareness. And we're very excited to have John Strachan with us today. First, I wanted to go over some of our upcoming events that we have that we're very excited about. So most of you know we have our golf tournament that's coming up tomorrow. So I hope to see you there. And our next education series is going to be an engineering panel on best practices in the industry in commercial real estate. We also have our upcoming May luncheon, which is wellness in our new normal, getting back to the office and how to cope with any stressors of adjusting from work from home to office life again. And then we have our June speaker series, which I am very excited about. We will have a speaker from Wounded Warrior Project talk about her challenges and what how Wounded Warrior Project helped her overcome those. So now I'm going to turn it over to Bob to introduce our speaker, John. Rick or Bob?
Thanks, Melanie. Definitely staying really busy this year, so that's really a good thing, and looking forward to the golf tournament tomorrow. We've got our continuing our education series here, and John was so polite and joining us as a speaker, even though it's not his favorite thing, and so we really appreciate John stepping up and talking about something that affects a lot of you out there. A couple known facts about John is that he's actually been in the business for 30 years. Believe it or not, he actually owned a Surf Pro in San Diego for 23 years. That was awesome. And he's owned the Surf Pro in the West Side Orange Park location for 10 years. And he's also been a platinum sponsor for BOMA for the past 10 years. So very actively involved with BOMA and obviously Surf Pro. A lot of experience. I mean, 30 years is amazing. So really look forward to John, you speaking, and us learning a lot about this topic. So without further ado, take it away, John. John, you're on mute.
Guy either. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, so.
Thanks, man.
All right, so mitigation awareness. Property damage. So property damage, water damage in particular is what we're talking about today. It's dramatic any size. Doesn't matter if it's a big, if it's relatively small, if it's a smoke damage. Most people are shocked when they see it. Just imagine that you're building your home, your first thoughts are basically a loss of control. And this is not, there we go. How do I go back here? So basically, how do we regain control once we have a water damage? It's in the past, it was sort of, you call the contractor, they take 2 or 3 days to get out there, or God forbid, you're trying to deal with an insurance company, especially here in Florida, and trying to get them to make decisions. That could take days, and it doesn't get any better when you have a water loss. The underlying theme of today's talk is going to be speed is the key. Effective mitigation is basically helping to manage the emotion of the loss. The tenants are not happy, property managers aren't happy, homeowners aren't happy. The other big thing that you want to do is, especially in the property management era, is you need to be the eyes and ears of the owner on site. You want to qualify all the parties' expectations, what to expect, what not to expect, what to do, and more importantly, what not to do. And the main reason speed is the key is when you're starting mitigation, it prevents what's called secondary damage. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we move forward. The other thing we need to do when we are talking about regaining control is providing security for the property. You know, if you have a door blown out from a fire or something, you know, you have to have security set up, you know, board up, that sort of thing. So what is mitigation? Mitigation is quote unquote reasonable and prudent steps taken under the terms of your insurance policy to limit the loss. Almost every insurance, not almost every insurance company has this verbiage or something very similar to it in their policies. You need to preserve, protect, secure the property from further damage. The best way to do that is to start mitigation early. So again, according to many insurance carriers, you know, the policy, you may not be covered for this if you don't take the steps to mitigate the loss right off the bat. This is a quote from an insurance policy: neglect by or failure by any insurer to use all reasonable means to save and preserve property after the time of loss or damage or the event resulting in loss or damage. And again, remember, speed is the key here. So what are our vendor responsibilities when we have a loss? First and foremost is safety. There's stories out in the real world out there of stuff, you know, people falling, hurting themselves because proper safety precautions weren't taken, or more importantly, they weren't followed after they were taken. So safety on any job site is the number one issue that we have to be aware of as property managers and vendors. Safety could include PPE, proper PPE, broken glass, trip hazards, all that sort of stuff, you know, debris falling. So you need to get out there and coordinate with the property manager or building owner as to, you know, what is safe and are safety protocols being followed. What services are going to need to take place here? Is it just a straight water damage? So we're talking water extraction and dry down. Is it a fire damage that happened and then all the sprinklers pop? Now we have a fire and a water damage. What are the building codes? Is it an older building? You know, every older building that has a loss, once it's put back together, it has to be upgraded to whatever the current building codes are. We got to remember that your vendor is out there and they're working for the property manager, not the tenant, but the property manager. You need to be aware of licensing versus certifications, and then what service offerings is your vendor have for you. And it's not moving. Okay, so what are the benefits of mitigation? Again, as I said earlier, speed is the key. Speed is the key. It's going to relieve stress on the policyholder as well as the tenant. Real world story, we had a water damage. Tenant had all kinds of, there was a builder or architect, excuse me. Every plan that they were working on was sopping wet because the water came from overhead. So if you're out there and you start dry down services and you start it fast, you can save a lot of this property. You need mitigation focuses on the insurer's emotions and the solutions and the claim handling satisfaction by meeting their expectations quickly. Also, again, speed is the key. You identify any issues for an adjuster or a property manager that they may or may not be aware of. It also stops secondary and time-related damages from water, smoke, soot, or other contaminants. Obviously, if water damages aren't addressed properly, the first thing you get is a mold problem that's going to flip everybody out. It also increases the chances of preserving irreplaceable valuables, specifically in a fire. When you have a fire and it isn't clean right away, you get what's called pitting on any glass or metal things. So it's, you know, then you're looking at replacing entire banks of windows when, if you got out there and mitigated quickly, you won't have that problem. Same thing with water. Once something turns into a category 3, which we're going to talk about later, or turns into a mold problem, now, you know, that the whole entire claim / loss has just spiked because of that. And again, keep in mind, happy customers renew their lease. Unhappy customers do not renew their lease. So, and that keeps them managed by you, the property manager. Benefits of mitigation: initial identification of issues for a decision maker to be informed about. Really important. Customer refuses service. That's happened before a lot. You just don't, tenants or customer just doesn't want to be bothered with it. And it is, it's a pain. It's a pain for everybody involved. So access to the law site's restricted. It's unlivable, or you can't work in it. Again, biggie, this should have been probably key point number one: safety or security concerns. And again, the benefits of mitigation or speed, speed. And then, does the loss exceed any emergency service limits? If you have a service level agreement with somebody or an insurance company. So those are all things that the decision maker needs to be notified about immediately. Also want to ask, are there any coverage concerns? Is there an insurance policy in place for this, or is the building self-insured? Are there any customer concerns that need to be addressed with the property manager? Is there any visible mold? Is there any lead paint or asbestos issues that need to be addressed? And those are all things you want immediate notification to wherever your point of contact is. The benefits of mitigation: basically, it increases the chance for preserving irreplaceable valuables. Again, the picture shows a painting, a doll for a teddy bear for some kid, that can be preserved, but if it's going to sit in wet carpet for over 72 hours, it's got to be thrown away. So again, the most important part of mitigation is speed is the key. Some of the things that happen if the loss isn't addressed right off the bat is you get delamination from carpet. That's where the carpet backing and the carpet fibers separate, so all the carpet has to be replaced. Furniture stain, bleeding on a carpet cannot be removed unless you get there immediately. Rust stains, warping wood floors, mold or mildew or swelling of building materials, doors, door frames, that sort of thing. Again, I've said it already, speed is the key. So let's talk a little bit about training before we get into the ins and outs of water damage. So basically, who sets our industry standards is the Institute of Inspection, Cleaning, Restoration, and Certification, the IICRC. They're basically the body that tells us kids out here in the world basically what to do and how to do it. It's been providing industry standards and employee training since 1972. The IICRC does not have any schools. They have teachers who are certified to teach classes. They have an abundance of certifications: water, in-place drying, fire, safety, odor control, carpet cleaning, upholstery cleaning. The list goes on and on. So you want to make sure your vendor, whoever it is certified by the IICRC. That's super important. The other thing with IICRC is in order to keep your certifications up to date, you have to have continuing education. So you have to know what's going on, what the newest and greatest information is out there. So that's basically the IICRC piece of the puzzle. And you want to make sure, again, whatever vendor you're using, that they are certified by IICRC. Super, super important. Water damage. Okay, so there's two components to water damage, and this comes straight from the IICRC. Category and class. You can think of category and class as: category, what kind of water is it? In class, how bad is the water damage? That's really the best way to think about it. What kind of water is it? How bad is the water damage? So category refers to the type of water that's affecting the structure. There's three categories. Category one is what they used to call clean water. It came from a sanitary source. It's a pipe that burst. Clean water came out of it. It's as pictured here, a sink overflow. Doesn't pose any substantial risk from getting people sick or inject it, or people, if people ingest it, it won't hurt them. There's no respiratory issues with category one water. So think category one as clean. Category two water, think of as gray. This is slightly contaminated water. So examples of a category two loss would be water that comes out of a washing machine, for instance, soapy water. It usually contains some microorganisms or nutrients from microorganisms, as well as other organic and inorganic matter. Category 2 is basically figure gray. They're clean, gray. And then the big deal is category 3. This is grossly contaminated water. This would be examples of category 3 water would be toilet overflow, flooding from the outside, rain, water intrusion from outside. Why would water intrusion from outside be a category 3 loss? There's pesticides, urine from animals, feces from animals, dirt, you name it. That's grossly contaminated water. So again, think clean, gray, and black water, category 1, 2, and 3. Category, just think of as what type of water is it. Class refers to how much water and how the water has affected the structure. So basically, there are 4 different classes of water that we deal with in our industry. Class 1 is water intrusion, where it's less than 5% of the combined walls, carpeting, flooring space, and ceiling space. Class 1, basically, it's a baby water loss. Low evaporation, it's described as low evaporation materials that are affected: plaster, wood, concrete, drywall, that sort of thing. They've absorbed minimum moisture, so that's class 1. Class 2 is any water damage that's between 5 and 40% of the combined walls, combined ceiling area, and implies carpeting. It's I always train my guys, figure you walk halfway through a room, that's class 1. You walk all up to the other side of the wall, that's class 2, so on and so forth. Class 3 is wet building materials that are more than 40% of the combined floor, wall, and ceiling surface areas. That could be an overhead loss, that could be a sprinkler blows, hits all the walls. That's a class 3 loss. Class 4 is basically anything, it's a specialty type thing. Stuff would be, examples of that will be multi-layered drywall, subfloors, a gym floor, for instance, brick retaining wall in the basement. We don't have a whole lot of basements here, but that would be an example of a class 4. True story. We had a loss, and the people were out of town for a long weekend. The neighbor, who was a nut job, broke a window, put a hose into the house, turned the hose on, and it ran all weekend. It took us 30 days to get that concrete dry. That's a perfect example of a class 4 water loss. Basically, anything that's beyond normal would be considered a class 4. The practical processes of water mitigation. So the main thing for water restoration is customer concerns, and the most important thing, again, is safety. The first step is going to be an inspection and then documentation. What's wet and how wet is it? You're going to determine the category, you're going to determine the class, you're going to determine what is wet, and you're going to moisture map the entire area. Then you begin mitigation emergency services, which begins with water removal. I refer to it as getting the easy water out. Extraction. In a commercial building, many times you have metal studs that have like a little cup there. Got to extract the water out of that. Basically getting the easy water out of the structure. And then dry down services, starting to get the structure dry down and get back to whatever your drying goals were for that loss. So basically, when you're drying down a structure, there is a science of drying piece of this puzzle. I'm not going to bore you with it because it's very dry. However, long story short, it has to do with evaporation and temperature and dehumidification of the area. So basically, that's going to be a combination of dehumidifier setup, air mover setup, possibly air scrubbers if it's a category 3 loss. But there is a science behind this whole thing. You want to have your vendor monitor every single day. The reason you want the monitor is you need to know how the place is drying down, and is there any adjustments that need to be made to the drying system to get the place dried quickly and efficiently. And then after that, you move into the restoration piece of the puzzle, which is the build back, it's the cleaning and the repair of the damaged structure. So the standards for water restoration are designed to, again, provide safety and health of workers and occupants, document and inspect the project, mitigate any further damage, which we talked about earlier, clean and dry the affected areas, and then complete build back and repairs for what was affected because of the loss. And again, all of these come from the IICRC. So it all starts with the first notice of loss. The key questions to ask the owner or the insurer or the tenant would be, when did the water damage occur? What happened? Is there electricity? What kind of structural damage is out there? Is there any standing water? If so, how much standing water? And what areas are affected? That all takes place before the guys are even dispatched to the loss site. So they know kind of sort of what they're walking into before they even get there. What to do until help arrives. Shut off the source of water if possible. Again, look for any safety issues. Protect and preserve any contents. Get them off the wet floor. Get them blocked, get them padded. Remove any contents of value, artwork, sensitive materials, even artwork hanging on a wall when you have water on the floor can be affected because of the humidity inside the building. And remove any newspaper, books, children's toys, etc. Turn off circuit breakers for wet areas if possible, if it's safe to do so. More importantly, what not to do is don't use a household vacuum. Don't use any wet electronics or electrical appliances inside a water damaged area, and then do not turn on any wet ceiling fixtures. So this is a little, excuse me, this is a little illustration that shows, what do you see when you see a water loss? You see, oh, some water spilled on a carpet. Oh, it's not that big a deal. Well, as it turns out, it is a big deal. You can see not only is the carpet affected, but you have the pad underneath the carpet. You've got the subfloor underneath the padding. You've got the baseboard that's affected. You've got drywall that's affected. And you may or may not have insulation behind that drywall that's affected. A lot of commercial buildings all the rooms are insulated, not just the exterior rooms. So these are all stuff that you have to take a look at and be aware of while you're doing your inspection and while you're doing your dry down. So basically you want to your vendor wants to reassure the customer, again, do a safety and damage assessment, communicate with the adjuster on any mold, asbestos, or lead, electrical, or any other issues for that matter, explain the services and the customer authorization, and then what are the scope of services going to be? What are the dimensions of the room, water category, water class, and then photos, document. You also want to validate what type of flooring is in there. Do we need to remove water? We need to complete emergency services. We need to complete dry down services, and then we need to monitor. When we monitor, we place equipment, we establish drying goals and document initial readings. Drying goals are established from another unaffected area of the building. For instance, if you have, excuse me, a couple offices affected, on the other side of the building, it has not been affected by the water, so you would go over and get your drywall readings on an unaffected area, and that's what's called your drying goals. So if I have my drying goal in an unaffected area is 10, I'm going to write that down as my goal. And then if the moisture meters on the affected area come up with a 40, for instance, you're not going to pull any equipment until that piece of drywall reads 10. You're going to confirm the initial monitoring times with the customers, and then you're going to clean the work area of trash and debris. These are just pictures of some of the tools we use to track moisture. The picture on the left is what's called a moisture probe. It beeps when it comes into contact with any moisture. You got a thermal hygrometer, which takes humidity readings in the air. And then you have a moisture meter that tells you exactly how many, what the percentage of the affected building materials are. These are all tools that we use every single day. And you have to use moisture meters because you can't just feel it with your hand, for instance, because you've got 35 or 40% moisture in your hand. And if a drying goal is 10%, you're never going to feel if it's wet or not. That's why these meters are so important to use. This is a couple pictures I just threw in there. This is an infrared camera. Shows what's wet, how wet is it, the materials and the contents, that sort of stuff. There's a picture of an infrared camera. The areas in blue are what's wet. it works on heat. The areas above it are not. So what you see on the regular loss over here, you can truly see what's wet and how wet is it over here on the right. There's an example of a wood floor that's cupping. Moisture meters telling us, how wet is it? And there's an after picture that we got this floor dried and got it to settle back down. All this cupping went away. So the key questions for monitoring are the structure and the contents items drying, and then when will it be dry? So that's why you want to monitor every single day, because there is a daily rental rate on all the drying equipment that's out there. So if stuff is drying, you start pulling equipment off the loss site, and it just documents what's dry or what is drying and what is not dry. We're going to work with the temperature, relative humidity, dew point, humidity ratio, vapor pressure. All those things need to be manipulated in your drying system to set up an efficient dry down system. Large loss. This is a couple pictures of a gym floor, of a desk and dehumidifier going into a commercial building. And these areas down here are dehumidifiers. I just wanted to kind of show you guys what type of equipment we use. Psychometrics, when is it dry? Is it dry in 1 day? Is it dry in 3 days? Is it dry in a week? It is dry when the science tells us. This is a picture of a dehumidifier and air movers in a commercial loss. So basically what happens is you have wet air in the, and I'm going over my limit, so Rick's going to yell at me, but I'm almost done. Dehumidifier takes in moist air, and it runs through and it flows out dry air, and the air movers circulate that air around in order to get that area dry. So we take moisture meters of the air conditions and the materials. We document all of this. And then as the loss goes on, we adjust the drying system and the procedures and the equipment as the moisture meters tell us to do that. And then we check the performance of the drying equipment as well. We moisture meter, we check everything. We check walls, we check the floor, we check the furniture, we check the contents. Projects got to be monitored on a regular basis. Some projects may require more frequent monitoring depending on what kind of loss it is. And again, we adjust or add drying equipment as needed, reposition them, reposition the dehumidifiers, reposition any heating equipment that needs to be done. And that's why, and you do that as the monitoring process moves forward. And you want to know, is it drying? If it's not drying, then we remove, inject, or perforate the wallpaper or that sort of stuff. If we have to dry, sometimes we do have to add more drying equipment as needed. And then we update all the parties. The benefit of documentation is it basically tells the story of the loss. Documentation is Servpro puts out. We put out what's called a drying report. Has all the moisture readings throughout the whole day. We also document with pictures before, during, and after. Drying is not complete till all the materials are returned to the drying goals, which we discussed earlier. And again, mitigation saves costs, stress, time, and at the end of the day, it saves customers. Any questions? I'm here to answer them.
Hey, John, I got a question. That was really detailed. I know you ran through like a lot of material in a short amount of time, so I really appreciate that. Quick question though, something I was thinking of when let's say a Cat 1 water damage, right? Or level 1 water damage, and it's otherwise clean water for the most part. How long does it take if it's water sitting standing water for a while?
Water turns into category 3 after 72 hours.
All right.
So that's, that's when you're done. Now category 3, I didn't really get into this during the presentation, but if anything is contaminated with category 3 water, all porous materials have to be removed. So that's why it's so important to get to it early, because if you have a category 1 loss and you're on it right away, you can save the drywall, you can save baseboards, you can save carpeting, but once that 72-hour time limit hits, all porous building materials have to be removed and the structure has to be cleaned and sanitized. It's a whole different animal than category 1.
Yeah, so it goes from a Cat 1 to a Cat 3 in 72 hours if
Yep.
it's treated or is not
That's
taken.
correct.
Oh. One other question from me is, so you talked about mitigation a little bit. Is there like a contingency plan or something that you got that like people on this call, if they run a building, they can get a plan in place, like who to call or what to do, like what prep they can do beforehand or like anything like that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I should put that on my marketing team, actually. Yeah, we call it an emergency ready plan. We do it at no cost. Basically, we go out to the building, we picture where all the power room is, the breaker panels, everything. And then we put this whole thing together, and then it's got not only emergency contact number for me if you have a water loss, but it also has your electrician in there, your plumber, and everything is sitting in one spot. So all I have to do is grab it. And it's all electronic too. You can just grab it right off your phone.
Okay, yeah, no, it's cool. Because we do similar plans for cooling, right? Contingencies,
Mhm.
and same thing for you for safety and for issues like that. I mean, it's important to have a plan in place. That way, you guys get the call, whoever gets the call, and they jump on site. They already know where everything is. They already know where to go. They already know what the equipment's on site and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we also offer a service level agreement too, which basically outlines the emergency ready plan, but then it has, all the forms already pre-signed and stuff. So we don't have to wait around for, somebody can call us from their house and say, go out there and do this loss, and they don't have to drive all the way down to sign paperwork because everything's already preset. So again, the adage I always use is I used to surf a lot when I lived in Southern California. And when you're surfing, you don't sit there and wait for the wave to get there, then start paddling. You see the wave coming, then you start paddling to get ahead of it. It's kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it'd be really valuable. Cool. Any other questions? Anybody else?
Guess we're good.
I guess so. Everyone's like, please, can it be Friday so we can go? So
Play golf.
please, the weekend, bring the weekend. We're getting close, everyone, so don't worry. No, I really appreciate it, and information here. If you want, and again, you went over a lot of information in a short amount of time, so understanding that, if anyone on this call wants a follow up or wants some additional information, just let us know. Either let myself, Melanie, Rick, John, if you have his contact info, just let us know if you need copies of any of the information that we talked about today, and we'll be happy to send them over to you and get you anything that you need to help your building for sure. So yeah, so if there's questions, then we'll cut out a little bit early, and like I said, just follow up if you need anything in the future, and really appreciate it.
Great,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Especially for presenting. Awesome job. And Melanie and Rick, just thank you so much. And we'll hopefully see most of you tomorrow.
Yep. All right. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.